Hi everyone, the Random Home Cook here. Today I will cook a nice recipe that I love, stuffed aubergines. It is an amazing vegetarian meal, and the peculiarity is that it's made with very small aubergines, with respect other recipes. These small aubergines are sweet and with a very delicate skin, and as a bonus become an amazing bite-sized finger food. But let's get cooking. This time I use about 15 to 18 aubergines, parsley, eggs, parmesan cheese, spices, onion, some bread, some milk, extra virgin olive oil, and garlic. This recipe has 3 main steps. Prepare the aubergines, prepare the stuffing, combine and cook. As a preparation, I put some bread to soak with some milk. 2 slices are more than enough for these quantities. I chop an onion for the soffritto. I wash and chop the parsley. I normally pre-chop and put in the freezer parsley, but this time I have it fresh. Now it is time for the aubergines. These are just the right size, or just a little bigger, but they will do. These are what I could find from my local shop and are the smallest I have seen so far. About 4 cm in diameter would be the ideal. The smallest here are very good. First, I clean the aubergines by washing them carefully. I carefully remove these kind of leaves around the stem. Doing this will finish to clean the aubergine, but it will leave a little bit of the stem at the center that will work like a little handle. I do not eat this because once it's cooked, it remains quite hardy and chewy, wooden-like. Once all are ready, I chop them in half, being careful to split the stem in the middle. Once all are done, I put them in a pot. This pot goes on the hob with some salt, and I add boiling water. When it starts bubbling, I cook for about 10 to 15 minutes. They just need to tenderize to make easier the process of removing the pulp, but not too much for the skin to break easily, which will make very difficult the process. Once the time passed, I strain them and I let them cool a little. Although still hot, when they can be handled, I delicately remove the pulp, trying not to damage the aubergine. If some break, I either mince them with the stuffing or I try to recover it, depending on the damage. Once the pulp is ready, I take a pot and I prepare a soffritto with extra virgin olive oil. I add the onions and a little bit of salt. I let the steam and stir fry for a minute or 2. And then I add the parsley. Once all is well mixed and the onions are starting to caramelize, I add the garlic. Once all is nice and roasted, I add the pulp. At this stage, everything is pretty coarse, but I will blend it or finally chop it later. The aim here is to cook the onions and parsley and to remove some of the water from the mix and to flavor it. This process takes some minutes. When it starts to compact and no water is released, it's ready. This takes about 6 to 10 minutes. I close the hob and I move it into a bowl To let it cool, I blend the mix. I add the bread previously soaked. I add an egg and I start mixing very well. I add some salt for seasoning the egg and the bread. I add some parmesan cheese to finish seasoning the mix, add some more flavor, and absorb some of the moisture added by the egg and the milk. Normally, it is at this point I preheat the oven at 170 to 180 degrees Celsius in static mode. Cooking time depends on the size of the aubergines and the amount of filling. It normally takes between 40 to 50 minutes. However, I keep an eye to avoid burning them, or I let them cook more if they don't look ready. Finally, I add the spices: black pepper, nutmeg and marjoram. I fold and I mix it all again very well. I take a large tray. I found that aluminium works the best for me when I cook this dish. I wet the tray with some oil, water and a pinch of salt. I make sure that the tray is well covered. And I start filling the empty aubergines, one after the other, with the mix, leveling the excess. Usually, the amount of stuffing exceeds the containers, so other vegetables can be used. Onions are my favorite, but also artichoke, potatoes and other vegetables can be used. Here I use onions. I peel 1 or 2 onions depending on how much mix I have left. I cut them in half and then I separate each layer, creating a little shell. I fill those as before, and here is the final tray ready for cooking. I put the tray in the oven for about 40 to 50 minutes. I know when they are ready, when a reasonable amount of time is passed, the filling puffs up a little and they'll start to crisp up on top. If the oven is too strong, I reduce the temperature. The egg needs to be fully cooked and the vegetable soft. As a final check, the oil and water usually disappear completely and they are ready or close to be done. Once ready, I take them out of the oven and this is what they look like. Let them cool a little. I move them on a dish with some kitchen towel to absorb the excess of oil, and these are ideal consumed at room temperature or cold from the fridge. I prefer them at room temperature. The taste is amazing and comforting, and they are very tender with the exception of the handle, that once I eat the aubergine, I discard. They are sweet and a little bit bitter, but delicious. If you like this video and you would like to see more, please consider subscribing and press the bell icon to be notified of new videos. See you next time.